As a rail fan, special paint schemes always get my attention, so when I saw Norfolk Southern's New York Central Heritage Unit, I was pretty excited. From giving passengers the red carpet treatment to appearing in a legendary film, the New York Central was definitely an icon of American railroading. A modern locomotive wearing the colors of one of America's many fallen flag railroads. This unit and 20 others received special paint schemes honoring the many companies that make up Norfolk Southern's history. But long before number 1066 was painted, countless locomotives, passenger coaches, and freight cars carried the New York Central name. The company ran famous trains like the 20th Century Limited and Empire State Express, and built a passenger terminal known around the world. Remarkably, the New York Central lasted from 1853 until 1968. Today, many miles from the company's former territory, this 21st century EMD SD70 ACE is working one of Norfolk Southern's yards in metro Atlanta, Georgia. It wears the two-tone gray lightning stripe scheme that was commonly applied to New York Central's diesel locomotives. In this great historic postcard on the left, featuring a so-called shark nose made by Baldwin, we can see how well Norfolk Southern replicated the paint scheme. The design here could be described as sleek and elegant, and that description was definitely part of New York Central's identity. In this classic ad, you can see passengers got the red carpet treatment as they boarded the 20th Century Limited, and that's likely where the phrase came from. The company's glamorous branding was also applied to the machines that pulled its trains. Before diesels began to dominate, many railroads began streamlining their passenger steam locomotives. Engine number 5426, covered in fluted stainless steel, started pulling the Empire State Express at the end of 1941. The industrial design here is impressive, but at first glance, you may not notice an interesting piece of technology attached underneath the tender. This scoop allowed the locomotive to take on water while in motion. You can see this amazing system in action on an older locomotive in this film shot in May of 1905. Here, the Empire State Express is taking on water in Schenectady, New York. The water was held in a long trough running between the rails. New York Central was the first American railroad to use this system, adopting it in 1870, but it was already in use in England. With engineering like this, it should come as no surprise that the New York Central also constructed one of America's most well-known structures. Grand Central Terminal opened in 1913. Journeys aboard some of America's most famous passenger trains started and ended right here. These days, Grand Central is a commuter rail terminal, but it's still a major landmark. Flashy passenger trains certainly captured the public's attention, but not all the locomotives that pulled them were streamlined and adorned with stainless steel. The 484 Niagara wasn't the prettiest engine, but it was efficient and reliable. These locomotives were built by Alco between 1945 and 1946. They could develop 6,700 horsepower and ran an average of 26,000 miles every month. And some publications claim it was the best locomotive design of the steam era. All Niagaras were retired by 1956, with diesels taking over. Sadly, none of these massive machines were preserved. A little more than a decade after the Niagaras were retired, in 1968, New York Central merged with its rival, the Pennsylvania Railroad, forming Penn Central. That company would become part of Conrail in 1976. In 1999, Conrail was divided up between CSX and Norfolk Southern. Some of New York Central's history is preserved in museums, but it's unlikely you'll see these colors flying by you on a Class 1 railroad's main line, unless you're lucky enough to see 1066 in person. And hopefully, it grabs people's attention, just as the company it honors did so many years ago. Any of you film buffs out there probably recall that the New York Central's 20th Century Limited was featured in the 1959 Alfred Hitchcock movie North by Northwest, starring Cary Grant. If you haven't already seen it, definitely check it out, and I'll see you next time.